Okay, so hopefully y'all remoted in. Open up your server one. I've been sharing on my screen, server one open. And we played with DHCP in the past, the ancient past, Wednesday. Our DHCP server is up and running, and it has a reservation set for a client machine. For a client machine, we'll always get 123 as its IP address. And we discussed about address pools. I just pulled the entire subnet and I created an excluded range. I could have just pulled from 50 to 254 if I wanted to, but I just went ahead and threw the entire pool in there and excluded. Excluded is really better if you've got something in the middle of a range. Like if you wanted to exclude like 20 through 30, that's more of what it's for. But and we discussed scope options. You can set up DNS routers and things like that. A lot of times with the scope, sometimes you only have the router address in the scope. And under server options, you have a global setting here for DNS because it would be pushed out to all the machines, no matter what subnet they were on, especially if you're only running DNS servers on one segment of your network. And today we were going to talk about IPv6 and setting up IPv6. Another thing is, before we can set up IPv6 under DHCP, we need to set up our servers and computers for IPv6. Well, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and close down my DHCP option. So configuring IPv6, most configuration is done automatically. And it takes your MAC address and does an E64 or something, or I'd have to, it's been a little while since I looked up the exact acronyms of the code, but they take your MAC address, add it into the subnet, add a bit or two in there and flip a bit or so, and it becomes your unique IPv6 address. And the computer scans, finds the router on the network, and pulls the network portion of the IPv6. So it's already almost all automatic. Why do we need a DHCP server? And the DHCP server typically pushes out to the clients the addresses of servers on the IPv6 segment, such as DNS servers. And that's why that you would set up DHCP for IPv6 is really just the scope options of the DNS servers. So on server one, it says we have IPv6 enabled. If you click on server manager and you click on local server, so go ahead and click the hyperlink, and that'll bring up your TCP/IP properties. And you'll find your network adapter. And you just go to properties like normal. Except we're not going to be working with IPv6. We're going to be scrolling down here to TCP/IP 6. And you got a checkbox beside it. Yeah, I'm at 4. There you go. All right, so click on properties. Awesome, somebody's listening. That's weird. I've been talking and I'm pretty sure that I said something odd and wrong, and I've asked the class, like, hey, well, wait a second. What's going on? What did I say? And none of them was listening. So I was like, okay, well, I guess it doesn't matter anyway. With IPv6 set up, I'm going to go ahead and set a static address on my computers. What's the typical prefix link on IPv6? Do y'all remember?
FE80.
60.
Wait, that's 64. Never mind. I was seeing it.
But you're right about the FE80. That was my next question. Was a local link address. So you just that's pretty. Thank you. You jumped ahead a little bit, but FE80s are local link. We're going to manually put an FE80, and you typically put colon and a number, correct? FE80 colon 1. Most people, I would think, would reserve that for the local link of the router. That way they don't have to type out the massive IPv6 address that the router might be dished out that includes the MAC and everything. So they create a local link, and FE80 knows only on that port off the router. So I'm not going to put FE80 colon 1, although I could in this situation since there is no router anywhere. I mean, we use .1 for server 1 anyway instead of a router. So in our scenario, we could go ahead and put .1 here, or colon 1. Can't let it obtain automatically, so I'm going to go ahead and do FE80 and FE80 down here. Oh, colon 2. I'm going to go ahead and hit it OK on that. Without a router in place, the IPv6 is, yeah, it can be done just a little bit funky. We use local links though. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and hit close. If I go to the properties and go to details button and examine the details of my IP addressing that we just got. So I've got a 192.168.2.1 and the 255s there. And I come down and I see that I've got 2 local link addresses, 2 FE80s. One of them is automatically set based on the MAC address of the computer. And then I've got a second one there, and it's got my colon 1. And that is so much easier to deal with than trying to type that long one down below. And then I've got my 2 DNS servers. I only have to put colon 1, colon 2 instead of having to try to copy and paste this long address. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to fix server 2. So really just easier to jump to the server 2 and do it through Server Manager since it does have a graphical interface. As I log into server 2, I'm going to click my link again for Ethernet, properties, IPv6 properties, and this time I'm going to do an FE80 and colon 2. tab down, it auto put the 64 prefix length in there. And I'm going to go ahead and enter the FE80 ::1 and ::2 in the preferred and alternate DNS servers, and hit OK. So the same as the first, just like we did with IPv4, we did a 1 and a 2. We're doing a 1 and a 2 on IPv6. And I just re-looked at my details and see that I have a 2 on IPv6, and the DNS addresses are still 1 and 2. I'm going to let you remote people get caught up a little bit. I know remote. My next step is I'm going to go to the DNS servers. Might as well do it on server 2 since I'm already here. If I launch DNS, I'm looking for it to register in the DNS server. Let me check. My DNS server is actually going to try to run. So let's check to run on all those addresses, interfaces. I have to wait for the clients to start jumping in too. Try a couple of options here. If I disable and re-enable the adapter, I'm not getting any Claude A records yet. Okay, well, I'm going to continue on building out the DHCP server. Let's see, I don't have the DHCP server tool on server 1. I only installed it on server 2. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to server 2. I mean, server 1. Switch back over to server 1. Let's go into tools and our DHCP service. Connect back to your server 3. Expand out your IPv6. Go to server options. And right click and configure server options. With 2 checkboxes here, we want to set up the DNS recursive name resolution. And domain name search list. Let's go ahead and put in FE80 ::1. And FE80 ::2. In the domain search list, I'm going to put contoso.com. And I'm going to hit apply. Okay, once that's done, I want to go ahead and do a reverse lookup zone for IPv6 on the DNS server before we start looking at our client machine. And go ahead and go to Tools. And go back to DNS Service. And we've got a reverse lookup zone for IPv4. We don't have one for IPv6. Let's go ahead and create a zone for IPv6. New zone. It'll be primary Active Directory integrated. We'll replicate to all DNS servers, leaving the default. We're changing the default from IPv6 to IPv4. That's what we're playing with today. I'm going to click Next. The prefix, FE80. I'm going to put in FE80::and a /64. And once that's typed in, it should create a reverse lookup zone for you and have it checked. And your next button should be visible. So I'll go and click Next. And I'll click Next again. And I'll click Finish. Okay, so coming off break, it's been about a year since I set up IPv6. I always run IPv4. So what I've found out, it's not going to register the local link addresses in DNS. It'd be like trying to register 127.0.0.1. It doesn't want to do that. Kind of similar to that, but not quite. So what I had to do to get it to register an address in the DNS is actually put a real IPv6 address in there. So we can't really simulate IPv6 too well since we don't have a router up there that has a routable IPv6 address out that's automatically dishing out everything to the clients. So this setup's a little bit funky to do. So what I did, I went into the adapter on server 1 and added a second address for IPv6. I went into advanced settings and added a 200D:1:1 with the 64 prefix link. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK on that. I'm gonna go to my server 2. And do the same thing to it. I'm gonna add a second address in here, simulating that we would have a router that was dishing out Ipv6 prefixes that I'm statically assigning a 200D:1:2 for it with the /64 for server 2. I'll disable and re-enable the device. I also need to go to server 3 and make sure that it's on the same network. So on server 3, I'm going to log in and run sconfig. Go into my network settings, which is number 8 on sconfig. I'm going at 0 for the adapter. Let's see, can I set IPv6? Before y'all do this one, let me see if this is going to work. That's not going to work. Why did that just open a new command prompt? Okay, mistakenly closed down that. It looks like for IPv6, they don't have a scripted way to put it on there. So his interface, the interface index number was 0, right? Let's let's type PowerShell. And have a little PS prompt at the very beginning of it. So doing a quick Google search, it says I need to get net adapter binding. With a switch called display name. And *6*. Is
there a reason why every time I log in on server 3, it's just a black screen?
Maybe need it Control-Shift-Escape and open up a task manager and click File and start a CMD command. Okay, I just left everything off and I just said get net adapter and have an index number of 4. I don't know if everybody has an index number of 4. Does yours come up 4 too? Okay, so that's what we were needing to get. We need to get the interface index number. And to put IPv6 on here, it says we need to type in new net IP address with dash interface index. You put the interface index number. You put a dash IP address, and then you put in the IPv6 followed with a switch for prefix length of 64. So they didn't make it easy on server core. They left it out of sconfig. I guess most people are still, I'd say most people are still playing with IPv4 local networks.
Hey, do you think you could help me out for a second? I can't really see the text on my screen, and I'm not fully sure if I spelled something wrong.
Yeah, you didn't put a dash between net and should be net. Yeah, it's new dash net IP address is a commandlet. Commandlets are always 2 words with a dash between them for PowerShell. That looks correct. The term new, yeah, you got a space there. You got to take the space out. There you go.
Thank you.
Since our server 3 is running static addresses, I'm going to go ahead and have to statically put the DNS server in here with PowerShell 2. And the command for that is set DNS client server address. And you got to do the same interface index followed by a switch that has server addresses, followed by a space, and within parentheses, within quotation marks, actually, whoops, I did not mean to hit enter. Actually, within two quotation marks, you're going to put the, I guess, FE80 : 1, and we can put the FE80 : 2 in there. And that should set the DNS static addresses for server 3. We're going to do an ipconfig/register DNS to tell it to register the DNS. So in an actual IPv6 setup, you're going to have a physical router sitting somewhere with an IPv6 address that's got 200D something on it with an address. You'll also probably have FE80 : 1 on that address for the default gateway. In your DHCP settings, you should only have scope options, and your scope options should actually, the clients are automatically going to grab their addresses. The only thing under scope options that you should have in there is the IPv6 address of the DNS servers. Your DNS servers, your Active Directory computers, you won't be setting static addresses typically on them. They'll be getting and generating their own IPv6 addresses based off what the router has. You probably read that in Cisco. You may have even done a lab and set up where your client gets an IPv6 address from it. Have y'all done that yet? Or is that a Cisco 4 thing? I don't know where they moved that in Cisco. If at that point, you're basically going ipconfig on your DNS servers, you're copying, it'll be a long address, it'll be auto-generated, you'll be copying that address, and you'll be going to your DHCP server and entering that address as the one of the primary secondary DNS servers. I'm going to go back to my server 1 and check what DNS looks like now. Under Contoso. So I have server 3, it's got a Claude A record and an A record for both IPv6 and IPv4, same thing for server 2. Server 1 Reverse lookup zone, refresh it. Reverse lookup zone's got it for everybody. My zone for the FE80 one is still blank. So that one right there that ends in 8EF right there, I'm going to delete that zone. So it went away. Reading blog posts, everybody else says that they didn't see that DNS server would do anything with the local link. And the reason behind that, it was coded local link is supposed to be in a broadcast domain. So they just decided we don't need to register those addresses. Only register actual routable IPv6. Okay, I'm gonna go play with my client machine, because really my client machine, I'm gonna restart my DNS service too. My not DNS, my DHCP server. I'm gonna restart it. Since I added that second address onto server 3, I need to restart the server so that it would know to bind to that other address. And the theory is, all you have to have is server options, and it should dish out DNS entries to the client machine. I do see possible one problem with the client machine though. There's not an actual router on the network to be given a 200D:1 address. And the router would also be specifying what type of state the IPv6 network was in, if it needed to contact the DHCP server or not. So I'm thinking our client machine is still, because we don't have a router, still going to ignore the DHCP server. So as a workaround for that, because you just don't statically assign IPv6 addresses. It's only done on the router. Let's go and go to properties. Let's go to IPv6. And it's not going to do that as automatic. I'm going to go ahead and put in here 200D:1:4. I'm going to leave this here blank for now. If I was going to get a DHCP and show you how to simulate, there's not a way to simulate it without an actual router on the network. There's no way to get the adapter. It's got to be getting the address automatically from the router's interface and know that it's got to run broadcast for an IPv6 DHCP server to get any extra addressing information. So there is no ping. Oh, it did ping. Are we resolving? Client 1 registered itself. Why is my end key not all of a sudden working? There we go. It's not pushing the DNS. I think it's just working just since that it's got dual IP addresses. It's contacting the .1 here and asking what server's one IPv6 address, and it's getting responses back. So that was kind of a long, convoluted way of IPv6, but the takeaway from this, you actually need a router on the network that's auto-configuring the IPv6 addresses for every computer, including the servers. So you would not be manually putting in the addresses. You would just be simply going looking at the computer, determining what the automatic IPv6 address was assigned to it. And then at the point of dishing out the DNS servers, you would copy and paste those under the server options, and it should work at that point in time. But we don't have a router to test that out. And while you're at it, and you're on your router, you might as well on the router go ahead and set up and put what DHCP servers are supposed to be there on the router interface. So you really wouldn't need IPv6 on Microsoft server. If you wanted to use it as an alternative, you could. But I'm going to vote that if you're running IPv6, do all the configuration on your router, even for dishing out DNS and other such options. Don't use Microsoft for it. I can see Sean right now trying to set up a Linux IPv6 router. So anybody got questions, comments? Anybody out working and actually on a network they have IPv6 running on? And I guess I should ask Sean, have you set up an IPv6 only network?
I have not.
There's still a whole lot of devices out there that you purchase, like print devices and stuff that only work on IPv4. So as far as building out a local network at a company, IPv4 is still extremely huge. You'll see IPv6 addresses where? Where do you see IPv6 addresses most often? Anybody? Probably everybody's got one in their pocket. And
Phones.
a lot of those networks are probably using IPv6. And somebody said phones, which yes, that would be correct. Your phone network. And also there's some companies that are running IPv6 internally or between routers and stuff. So a lot of networking equipment like at the ISPs and stuff running IPv6 between them. And then they're just packaging up the TCP/IP4 frames and tunneling them across the IPv6 networks, freeing up. They're trying to do that to free up IPv4 numbers that they can resell to customers because they're in short supply and high demand. IPv6, on the other hand, there's a huge supply of those. Enough to have, for every person to have thousands of IPv6 addresses apiece. And still have plenty left over. That's a lot. Are we ever going to run out of IPv6 addresses?
No.
Andrew says no.
I don't think it's possible for Earth to hold that many people.
They said the same thing about IPv4 when they created it. Because I think the population was, they created enough addresses for about the population of the globe at that time. And I don't guess they thought users would have more than one device. Like, wow, what type of world would it be if everybody had a computer?
No, IPv4 is just numbers. IPv6 is also a mixture of numbers and letters. There's 25 letters in the alphabet.
It's hex. And it's actually numbers. And it's numbers 0 through 15, except you can't represent 10 through 15 as numbers, so they use letters A through F. And it's all still just numbers. You can convert it over to number.
Looks like all letters are moved, so different letters.
So you can convert the value over to base 10 number with no letters in it. But yeah. Okay, well, we covered the ACP. I hope that, so Sean, what Cisco are you in? Are you in Cisco 3?
Yes, Cisco 3.
What have y'all done with IPv6?
We haven't really done all that truth be told, much of it itself. We've basically we've set up a few IPv6 things, but it's not like we're learning IPv6 exclusive stuff yet.
Okay,
Because it's everything we've learned is just the IPv6 version of the IPv4.
yeah. All right, so that may be why you're a little bit lost. You haven't set up DNS or anything? Options for IPv6?
Sort of, but again, haven't really done too much with DNS yet.
Okay. They may not be pushing that yet because IP4 is still really big in local networks. So that may be what they're focusing on. They may not get into that until you get like CCNP level. This new curriculum, I have not taught it, so that's a little bit of a downside. Not knowing everything that you've been through. Okay, I'm gonna close everything out. We're at the end of class. I believe the test out's due today. Am I correct?
Not from what I saw. It said it was due, I think, the 30th for this class for some reason, or was it security?
That's security.
And this one was, it said November, I think.
I even did like, I finished it up yesterday and did it, because I thought it was today. I don't know, I saw that it was due on the 6th of November.
So I thought DHCP, that's module 13, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I don't know why I gave 2 weeks for that. Not sure why there was 2 weeks given for that one.
I didn't either, but I wasn't gonna complain about it.
I only gave 1 week for the module 14.
Actually, I think he actually gave 3 weeks, because next week is 30th, and then, so we have 3 weeks for that one.
For which one? You said this one?
For this one, yeah, because next week is the 30th, and then November 6th is the next week after that, and we had this week.
The module 13 was due on the 6th. So, and 14 is due on the 13th. That's only a week from the 6th to the 13th. So why did I mess up on the dates? Because I thought we were supposed to be finishing DHCP this week. It's not that massive. The next one's containers.
Is there no labs in it?
No, containers have no labs. It just talks about what containers is so that you're in a job interview, like, I've heard of what a container is. So who is everybody in security?
Yeah.
Thinking, is anybody not in security? Okay, so that's going to be good. So this section is over containers. And what is a container? We're probably going to be, we're finished up with DHCP. I mean, the due dates are still there, but next week we'll be working with Azure, and we'll be deploying out a CentOS 8 machine And I believe on CentOS, I'm going to use, I think I'll probably use that and Docker and play with containers in there so you can see maybe what a container is. We'll look and see if we can grab something. It's something just we're not going to go into major detail on how to do them or anything. We're just going to try to load up a container, run an app through a container object, and just try to show you what some of the commands are on that. So, but we're in security. I think I said we were going to start our Azure in security or cloud stuff. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Roll out an Azure cloud, and then we'll use that same virtual machine in this class for a few days. So that's our plans. Sweet. And we got a presentation coming up too. Yep. Presentation.
I think my birthday's on a Tuesday. Are you kidding me? I was hoping to do it on a weekend so I can get drunk on that night. I guess
These
it's more work
dates.
not to work on Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, the dates are going to be okay. All right, yeah, everything's looking semi-okay on that. So we need to wipe down computers, log out. I'll need to go to your next class. Go jump into your other Zoom meeting, I guess, for Cisco. I hear she's got a bunch of evil